Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the live streaming worship service of the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside. I'm Grace Preuss, a member of the worship committee, and I will be your worship associate today. We invite you to worship with us with an open mind and an open heart. As we enter into sacred time, created by our presence and shared intent, I invite you to get comfortable. Turn down your phones or other distracting devices. Make a conscious decision to set aside for this 1 hour the self-protective walls we all keep around our hearts and our thoughts. Let us remember and explore together what has drawn us to this faith, or learn what this faith is about. And relax. Let the stresses of the outside world slip away as together we focus on this time together. And together we breathe. Although we are now a community connected largely by electronic means, one day we will be together again. Yet even now, we are those seekers with the yearnings to learn, to understand, to make the world a better place, and with the same desire for fellowship. And so we are here, seeking that living, interconnected web of which we are a part. Let go of the anxiety, the fears, the expectations of your own or others' making, and join us in this hour of beloved community. And so together, we breathe. Our opening hymn this morning is Abide With Me. Please rise in spirit and join us. And because we are Zooming this, nobody will know if you sing off key.
Abide with me, fast falls the evening tide. The darkness deepens, still with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless, so abide with me. Swift to its close ebbs out life's little day. Earth's joys grow dim, its glories pass away. Change and decay all around I see. Oh, thou who changes not, abide with me. I fear no foe with thee at hand to bless. Ills have no weight and tears no bitterness. Where is death's sting? Where brave thy victory? I triumph still if thou abide with me.
For our call to worship, please read with me one of our Unitarian Universalist covenantal poems. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to live in harmony with all the living creatures and plants of the earth. This do we affirm. Today, Bonnie McFarland will be reading a sermon titled Care of the Soul by Reverend Dr. Wayne B. Arnason. There's one paragraph in the sermon that she says sums up well the intent of the sermon and perhaps the reason she chose it. It is the great gift and the great curse of many Unitarian Universalists that we are more comfortable with the intellectual path of religious understanding. Yet all of us know that our lives, our values, our sense of being at home in the world have been created not only by our intellectual encounter with the world, but by our experiences of joy at connectedness, of anger at injustices, and of wonder at overwhelming beauty, experiences that can all be wordless and ineffable. Soul is the place where all these experiences meet together with our ideas and our collective unconscious in order to prepare the spiritual feast that is life's greatest gift. The Reverend Dr. Wayne Arnason is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist with a 40-year career of service in UU congregations and institutions. Reverend Arnason served in 2 long-term parish ministries at the Thomas Jefferson Memorial Church in Charlottesville, Virginia, from 1984 to 2000, and with his wife, the Reverend Kathleen Rollins, at the West Shore Unitarian Universalist Church in Rocky River, Ohio, from 2000 to 2016. During 2015 through 16, he served as a part-time interim minister for the Fox Valley UU Fellowship in Appleton, Wisconsin. He retired from full-time ministry in 2016 and now lives in Charlottesville, Virginia. With his wife, Kathleen, Reverend Wayne co-authored a widely read book on UU worship practices, Worship That Works, in 2008. A second edition came out in 2017. He and Reverend Sam Trumbore published a collection of essays in 2013 on Buddhist voices in Unitarian Universalism. Reverend Wayne's denominational service outside the parish has regularly focused on ministerial formation and excellence. For 12 years, he served on the Ministerial Fellowship Committee and was chair from 2008 to 2015. He was also president of the UU Ministers Association from 1993 to 95 and is currently on the board of Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago, Illinois. Reverend Wayne has served the UUA in various continental leadership roles, and from 1966 to 2005, he was a trustee at large on the board of the Unitarian Universalist Association. During sabbaticals, Reverend Wayne pursued continuing education in both clinical ethics and worship. In 1990, he was named a fellow at the Center of Biomedical Ethics at the University of Virginia Health Sciences Center. In 1991, his article on affirmative action in kidney allocation was published in the Hastings Center Report. In 2005, he and his wife, Reverend Kathleen Rollins, traveled the country studying the present and future of worship in the UUA. Reverend Arnason has focused his community activism through faith-based community organizing. He served on the board of Greater Cleveland Congregations and was a leader in Virginians Against the Death Penalty. Reverend Wayne's personal spiritual practice is rooted in Zen Buddhism, and he was president of the UU Buddhist Fellowship. In his free time, Reverend Wayne enjoys golf, films, hiking, cycling, and cooking. Bonnie said she first attended a UU church when she was 20 years old and knew she was home. She became a member of UUCR in 1996, soon after moving to Riverside, and became active in the Social Justice Committee from the start. Bonnie said that after retiring a few years ago, she discovered a new door open, and her life is now replete with active involvement in UUCR and in other political and social groups. She also cares for her own rescued cats and dog and volunteers with wild animal rescue. There are a few announcements we would like to share. During the service, we will mention several website and email addresses and phone numbers. the end of the service, we will leave up a slide with all this information so you don't need to be distracted copying things down right now. However, for those needing the information by auditory means, they will be announced verbally during the service. Chat time provides an opportunity to spend an hour talking among ourselves, usually beginning with the service, then wandering on to other topics. It's held on Zoom 1/2 hour after service every Sunday. So, chat time today will begin at 11:30. But to participate, you need a separate Zoom invitation. So please go to our website at uuchurchofriverside.org for the Zoom chat time registration, or email Lee Greer at president@uuchurchofriverside.org. We have returned to our traditional time of sharing joys and concerns on the first Sunday of each month. Please be sure to email or text your joys and concerns throughout the month to Dinah Rowe, our Caring Network Coordinator. Her email is ramblinrose22@yahoo.com, or you can call or text her at 909-645-2885. The crises of 2020 demand our response to the central question of our time. How shall we live together? As people of faith and values, our response calls for a new moral vision, a California where everyone, no matter our race or place, can truly belong and thrive. We also believe in mercy, second chances, and healing. Pledge to vote for these values in November. It's easy to make that pledge. On your cell, text SCF-ICUC to 40649 to find out how. For the most current and reliable information related to COVID-19 virus for our area, go to the website for your county public health department or the state of California. You can find information and links on our website at uuchurchofriverside.org. Dinah Rowe has started the monthly UUCR newsletter again. It will be out the first of every month. If you have something you would like covered or you want to write something for it, let Dinah know. That's Dinah Rowe at ramblinrose22@yahoo.com, or call or text her at 909-645-2885. Occupied Indigenous Peoples Remembrance Candle. Let us acknowledge that we walk upon the traditional territories of the Maranga, the original people of this land, who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. In honor of the Maranga people, we, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside, light the sacred flame as the stewards of this sacred and holy place. We are blessed with a space and opportunity to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to live out our dream of a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. Our chalice lighting this morning is "Blessed is the Fire That Burns Deep in the Soul" by Eric A. Keller Wagner. Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul. It is the flame of the human spirit, touched into being by the mystery of life. It is the fire of reason, the fire of compassion, the fire of community, the fire of justice, the fire of faith. It is the fire of love burning deep in the human heart, the divine glow in every life. Our next hymn is Spirit of Life. Please rise once more in spirit and join us. And now Dinah Rowe, our church treasurer, will speak to us about sharing our treasure.
Good morning. This portion of our service is how we fund all that we do to minister to and care for our congregation and our beloved historic church, and to ensure that when we are able to safely reopen again, we will be here to welcome you all back again. A reminder that even though the church is not allowed to reopen at this time, the church expenses continue. Just a few of the expenses which are ongoing are the utilities and insurance and the administrator. Robert pays the bills, answers inquiries to the church, plus other administrative items that he has to deal with that come up on a daily basis. You can mail your pledge and donations to the church office, and again, please, no cash. Our church office is shown here and will be available again later in the program. Stater Brothers and script cards. We have Stater Brothers cards for your grocery shopping that also earns the church a percentage. Please contact me or the church office to purchase Stater Brothers cards. Once more, my email is shown here. For those of you who have purchased Amazon gift cards, another way to help is when making purchases through Amazon, go to thesmile.amazon.com. Be sure to have the smile and choose Universalist Unitarian Church as your charity. We receive 0.5% of your qualifying purchases, and by purchasing an Amazon script card, we receive a percentage from both. I will be taking orders for script cards later as the holidays approach. Gift cards make good gifts to put in with your holiday cards. Please donate as the Spirit moves you to whatever method works best for you. Thank you for your generosity, and to those who give of their time and their talent. Thank you for your generous care and attention. Our next hymn is going to be From You I Receive. Please rise again in spirit and join us.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live.
A moment of meditation, contemplation, prayer. On Friday of this week, we lost an icon, a powerful and tireless voice for justice and equality. Her impact on our laws and our culture has been momentous, and her loss at this time will have untold repercussions. Let us take a moment for silent meditation and prayer. Our contemplative reading this morning is All This Talk of Saving Souls by Linda M. Underwood. All this talk of saving souls. Souls weren't made to save, like Sunday clothes that give out at the seams. They're made for wear. They come with lifetime guarantees. Don't save your soul. Pour it out like rain on cracked, parched earth. Give your soul away, or pass it like a candle flame. Sing it out, or laugh it up in the wind. Souls were made for hearing breaking hearts, for puzzling dreams, remembering August flowers, forgetting hurts. These men who talk of saving souls, they have the look of bullies who blow out candles before you sing happy birthday and want the world to be in alphabetical order. I will spend my soul playing it like sticky string into the world so I can catch every last thing I touch. And now I welcome Bonnie McFarland to read to us the words of the Reverend Dr. Wayne B. Arnason.
"10 years ago, I was asked to present a paper to a new minister's study group that was forming at Cedar Hill, a small conference center near Boston. The group had chosen a perennial topic for UU clergy study groups, science and religion. My job was to review one of the books we'd read in common and offer some of my own thoughts on the chosen theme. The book I was assigned was Eric Harth's Windows on the Mind, a book about the impact that new brain research was having on our understandings of the relationship between mind and body. It was a challenging book, and I did my best with it, but I felt that in my own comments concluding the paper, I wanted to explore a dimension of human experience that seemed to me to be missing in Harth's analysis. So I wrote a few pages about the soul as a reality different from both mind and brain. I speculated about what the soul might consist of. I included a poetic quote from a spiritual storybook. I invited reflection and response from the assembled colleagues. As I finished reading my paper, I looked up and immediately felt like a parent who had brought an unruly child to a sedate adults-only cocktail party. Some of my colleagues responded to me with outright hostility, shocked that another UU minister would disrupt their intellectual festivities with something as irrational as a soul. Others avoided conversing with me entirely, deciding to keep their distance in case this unpredictable concept that I had brought into the room might actually spill something unpleasant on their clean and neat worldviews. There were some people who were willing to engage with this soul, who had tagged along with me into the room, but it was as if all they could say about it was, "Cute little concept you have there." This soul is a messy thing for Unitarian Universalists. We are burdened by whatever childhood definitions or images of soul we have had imposed upon us or picked up by osmosis. We are handicapped by a vacuum of contemporary reflection on the soul by any scholars, theologians, or scientists that we trust, precisely because the word itself carries so much baggage. We are intimidated by the possibility that we will be greeted by other Unitarian Universalists with the same chilly reception I received at Cedar Hill when I dared to suggest in my paper on science and religion that the soul might be an idea worth considering. The burden of childhood definition we carry when it comes to the word soul is in the speculation about whether there is a material entity that is the essence of life. There is the true story of the wealthy man who recently offered a great reward to anyone who could scientifically prove the material existence of a soul that survived after death. The most promising study submitted for the prize was done by an enthusiastic researcher who had somehow arranged with a hospital to be able to monitor the before and after weights of dying patients in order to determine whether any mass had disappeared as the patients expired. This macabre experiment was apparently not considered worthy of the philanthropist's reward. Some believers in the soul aren't interested in proving that a soul has a material existence. They may, in fact, believe that the soul is a non-material entity that does exist, and that leaves the body upon death and goes on to heaven or hell. Some believers in the soul aren't sure about the heaven or hell part and don't want to restrict the soul to humans or even to conscious beings. They see the soul as the spark of life that comes from God and animates all of life. And of course, some people don't believe in the soul at all, except as a superstition or a metaphor from literature and poetry. It is to poetry that we will often first turn in any meditation toward a common understanding of the soul. Mary Oliver captures all of the contradictions and ambiguities inherent in the word soul in her poem. Some questions you might ask. Is the soul solid like iron? Or is it tender and breakable like the wings of a moth and the beak of an owl? Who has it and who doesn't? I keep looking around me. The face of a moose is as sad as the face of Jesus. The swan opens her white wings slowly. In the fall, the black bear carries leaves into the darkness. One question leads to another. Does it have a shape like an iceberg, like the eye of a hummingbird? Does it have one lung like the snake or the scallop? Why should I have it and not the anteater who loves her children? Why should I have it and not the camel? Come to think of it, what about the maple trees? What about the blue iris? What about all those little stones sitting out all alone in the moonlight? What about roses and lemons and their shining leaves? What about the grass? These images of the poet touch us and stir our sense of mystery. They remind us how little we know of the world that is around us. Perhaps it is all right that there are some things about which we know little but a name. The Sufis tell a tale about a man who had married a wife much younger than him. One day, his most faithful servant approached him and said, "Your new wife is acting suspiciously. She has brought a huge chest that once belonged to your grandmother into her room. It once contained only a few embroideries, but I believe there may be much more inside it today than that. She has sent me away and forbidden me to look inside." The man went to his wife's room and found her sitting beside the chest. "Will you show me what's in this?" he asked. "Because of your servant's suspicions or because you do not trust me?" she replied. "Wouldn't it be easier to just open it without thinking about all these undertones?" her husband asked. "I do not think that is possible." "Give me the key," he said. She held it up. "Dismiss your servant and I will give it to you," she demanded. The servant was dismissed and the woman handed over the key to her husband. Then she too left the room, obviously troubled. The old man thought about the chest for a long time. Then he called 4 gardeners from his estate. Together they carried the chest, unopened, to a distant part of the grounds, and they buried it. The matter was never referred to again. Perhaps our conversation about the soul should be like that. Why speculate about something that can't be proven? And even if somehow we could obtain the key to the box of knowledge that would tell us everything about the soul, maybe it would be better to just leave it buried and unopened. I have felt that way sometimes in my speculations about the soul. But a new book by a former Catholic monk and current psychotherapist named Thomas More has encouraged me to dig up my soul box once again and look inside. You've already heard from an excerpt from the Introduction to Care of the Soul, in which More begins to build his own definition of what this word soul should point toward. "Soul is not a thing," says More, "but a quality or dimension of experiencing life and ourselves. It has to do with depth, value, relatedness, heart, and personal substance." I do not use the word here as an object of religious belief or as something to do with immortality. So here we are talking about something very different from a metaphysical entity. Moore's book uses a psychotherapist definition of the soul inspired by Jungian psychology, mythology, and the arts. He goes on. Care of the soul begins with observance of how the soul manifests itself and how it operates. We can't care for the soul unless we are familiar with its ways. Observance is a word from ritual and religion. It means to watch out for, but also to honor and keep, as in the observance of a holiday. The serve in observance originally referred to tending sheep. Observing the soul, we keep an eye on its sheep, on whatever is wandering and grazing. The latest addiction, a striking dream, or a troubling mood. Care of the soul, then, is an observance and honoring of the signposts, the scenery, the obstacles, and companions of your inner journey. Sounds simple enough, so why use that troubling word soul? I think it's because we don't have a word in the English language that comes any closer to describing this meeting place, this crossroads where our separated embodied lives encounter so much at once. The world around us, the unconscious archetypes which surround us, the history that we pull behind us, and the aspirations and values that we envision in front of us. I like Moore's comparison between the observance that goes into the care of the soul and the tending of sheep. The image reminds me of a story that I told to the ministers at the Cedar Hill retreat, drawn from the spiritual fable, The Souls of Lambs. It's a story about a sheep farmer who has learned something about soul from years of watching both his sheep and the changing weather outside and inside his body. But he had one more powerful lesson to learn about soul. It came when his wife was almost ready to deliver their last baby. It was hay baling time, and the shepherd had been betrayed by the weather. He was feverishly baling hay, trying to outrace the storm, when his wife went into early labor. He asked, should they start now? For the hospital was 30 miles away. Finish baling, she had urged him, else the hay crop will be lost. He didn't need much convincing. He knew what his hay was worth, what purchased hay could cost. So he baled. Then the storm came and made further progress, baling useless. He had not had time to load the bales in his wagon. The shepherd went home, and there he found his wife lying still. Her ruptured womb no longer urged an infant to be born. The shepherd had not seen the soul depart from his wife. What he saw was only flesh. He could see her now, weighing her pain, urging him to bail. Better lose a hay crop than his mate, though, and a helpless infant. Then rain fell in sheets, and he knew his hay would also rot. How does anyone confront such evil? How do men bear grief? The shepherd had crumbled on the bed and clutched hands at his heart, astonished by its violent beating. He feared it might burst. Pain shot towards the shepherd's shoulder, but he saw that succumbing now would be a cruel, pointless joke. He vowed, no, 'twill not die today. I am still more than meat. The shepherd did not weep. His heart regained its ancient pace. Slowly then he rose and sought help. How does anyone confront such evil? How do men bear grief? How indeed had we not our souls to teach us to endure? There are things on earth that can't be seen, not with the naked eye, not with microscopes, nor binoculars, nor any lens. There are things within each creature that can never be explained. To wit, What is the soul and where? Yet the soul certainly does exist while creatures live. There is no life without soul, and when creatures die, it is their souls that die or disappear. For not even a single cell of carcass disappears, yet something has been lost or changed. We are talking now about soul as something that teaches us to endure. It is part of the courage and wisdom that grows from life experience, from unearned and unexplainable suffering. Something that we sense is either lost or changed when we are in the presence of death, and something that helps us to choose to live in the face of it. Sometimes it is a crisis, a profound loss or dramatic change in circumstance that puts us squarely at that crossroads place where we recognize that soul is all we have. As the shepherd continues to live his life on the farm, alone now with his sheep, he sums up what he has learned about soul. I know 3 ways to see the soul, he thinks to himself, though not with the eyes. Each is a mode of loving, each a mode of loving vision. One mode is passion, and the second mode is parenthood. And a third way to see the soul is in husbandry. In the passion of his love for his wife and in their role together as parents, and in the daily caring for all the outward things that sustain his sheep and his farm, this shepherd feels he understands all that he can know about soul. All of these insights are echoed in Thomas More's understanding of what constitutes soul. But More adds one more way of seeing the soul, which I believe is actually the key we can use each and every day to open that mysterious box we have buried in our psychic backyard. Tradition teaches that soul lies midway between understanding and unconsciousness, and that its instrument is neither mind nor the body, but imagination. That is the 4th way of seeing the soul, and the key to the box containing Thomas More's understanding of it. To say that imagination is the key to understanding your soul, however, is not to concede that the soul is less than real. If we are truly observant and honoring of the daily messages that our souls send us, and if we can greet those messages with imagination rather than literalism, we find that our soul becomes a true companion, easing our passage through this very real and very difficult world. What are these daily messages of the soul? Ironically, many of them are symptoms, physical and emotional signals that we usually try to suppress or ignore, or simply wait out until they go away. Insofar as psychotherapists and clergy work together in a common field, it is the common field of symptoms. People come to us with symptoms they don't understand and that they want to have go away. When we have the good sense to invite people through their acts of imagination to befriend rather than antagonize their symptoms, they don't want to hear it. To suggest that a painful symptom or a family tragedy or a difficult emotional setback might also be a vehicle for knowing the soul sounds too pat, too superficial, but it is just the opposite. Some of my own interest in dreams and dream work has arisen from seeing them as messengers from that integrating, valuing, creative, and enduring place I call soul. In his book, Tom Moore relates a powerful dream image from a client of whose symptoms was an eating disorder. She brought a dream to one of their conversations in which she discovered that her esophagus was made of plastic and it wasn't long enough to reach her stomach. That image of a plastic esophagus is a perfect one for our modern world. Our means of connecting to our inner work do not reach deep enough. Our esophagus is an excellent example and an image of one of the soul's chief functions: to transfer material of the outside world to the inner. But in this dream, it is made of an unnatural substance that stands for the superficiality of our age, plastic. And if this soul function is plastic, then we will not be well fed. One of the most puzzling ideas that Carl Jung ever put forward in his writings was this one. He said, "The soul is, for the most part, outside the body." This sounds so extraordinary because all of our usual thinking about the word soul attaches it with the mind and locates it inside the body. To say that the soul is mostly outside the body is to connect the soul with our action in the world in an essential way. Jung echoes the shepherd's insight that husbandry, taking care of the things of the world, is in itself a connection into the soul. Carl Jung himself lived his belief in the connection between the outward and inward dimensions of the soul through the continuing work he did during his life on his tower retreat. He began building a primitive stone tower as a dwelling for himself and found that every 4 years he would be moved to make additions to it. As time went on, the daily acts associated with building, maintenance, and living within this tower became a profound part of Jung's personal spirituality. He chiseled the names of his ancestors in the courtyard of his tower and decorated the ceilings with motifs from his and his wife's coat of arms. He painted dream images on the walls and worked on carvings that became part of the decor. The outward work and inner work that was manifested by the reading and writing he did inside the tower were all one. The soul feeds on the life around it. To the soul, the ordinary is sacred, and every day is the primary source of religion. For this reason, any community that is concerned with soul must recognize the connection between soul, daily life, and spirituality. The soul needs a vivid spiritual life that keeps it connected to the outside world. A spiritual life that does not smother the soul in rote, that is trying to pass for meaningful ritual. A spiritual life that offers an articulated worldview and a sense of relatedness to the whole. A spiritual life that balances a sense of transcendence with the eminence of traditions and values that have been part of a family for generations. This is how soul and church are connected. Everybody has a soul, but not everyone knows how to touch and heal and nurture soul within their lives. Care of the soul can be encouraged by the recovery or the sustenance of a formal religious tradition. The practices of preparation for and observance of the signals of the soul are part of what a religious tradition are all about. The opportunities the church creates for conversation and mutual support in groups small and large, formal and informal, helping us develop the courage and the language to talk about soul, is part of what a religious tradition is all about. It is the great gift and the great curse of many Unitarian Universalists that we are more comfortable with the intellectual path of religious understanding. Yet all of us know that our lives, our values, our sense of being at home in the world have been created not only by our intellectual encounter with the world, but by our experiences of joy at connectedness, of anger at injustices, and of wonder at overwhelming beauty, experiences that can all be wordless and ineffable. Soul is the place where all these experiences meet together with our ideas and our collective unconsciousness in order to prepare the spiritual feast that is life's greatest gift. The story is told of the great Zen teacher, Suzuki Roshi, who was dining with a group of Westerners who were learning about Zen. The seminar for the day had ended and the Roshi was trying to eat his meal, but one man was particularly insistent on continuing to ply him with questions. Mr. Suzuki, how would you sum up Zen for a Westerner like me? With unusual vigor in his voice, Suzuki looked him in the eye and said, "Eat." It is a story our tradition could well take to heart. Perhaps the vernacular of African American speech has best captured the correct meaning for the word soul. For when you hear a Black brother or sister praising music or food, or a person who has got soul, you know there is an authenticity, a depth, and an exuberance which is being pointed out. We continue to strive in this church for some of that soulfulness to permeate our theology, our community, and our daily lives together. Back in 1910, writing to Freud, Carl Jung observed the churches of his day and commented, "What infinite rapture and wantonness lie dormant in our religion. We must bring to fruition its hymns of love." His observation is still true, and his challenge has yet to be taken up. May we rise to meet it. Our closing hymn is "Find a Stillness." Please rise in spirit and join us.
Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, help me flower, watch me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
For our benediction, please close your eyes and reach out to each other in your thoughts. Feel the connection between us, the interconnected web joining us as a community, a church family. Our benediction is "What I Know" by Kenneth W. Collier. I do not know where we go when we die, and I do not know what the soul is, or what death is, or when, or why. What I know is that the song once sung cannot be unsung, and the life once lived cannot be unlived, and the love once loved cannot be unloved. Amen, shalom, and blessed be.
There's all the contact information from the announcements if anybody needs it. And thank you all for joining us.